So welcome to the very first Web Designer YouTube show. Today I have an esteemed colleague and a very well-known man in the web design world. He's known as Tom Wittlin and he works for Folk.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
That's all right, it's a pleasure. Today we're going to be talking about animation and how it affects the user experience, how the human connection works with animation. We're not talking about nice spinning blocks that mean absolutely nothing. We're talking about more like the interactions on a user interface. So I'm going to kick off with Tom, who's going to, obviously because he's the expert, and he's going to tell us all about it.
I should caveat this with I can't actually write JavaScript, but it's more. There you go.
Just need eyes. That's all you need.
You do need eyes, yeah. So yeah, I think that we're definitely starting to see resurgence in the way that animation is being used, and it used to be that. In the days of Flash, everybody just kind of stuck a Flash animation in anything just for
Yeah.
just because if there was some white space, fill it with a Flash animation, or make the logo going. Do you remember like the little letterboxes things going into them like that?
Look at that, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's the one. So then that was animated GIFs, and then it progressed to Flash, but it was kind of really purposeless. It didn't really have a lot of point to it, and it was mainly eye candy, and it was good on film websites and so on. But now it seems that CSS and JavaScript have sort of come together a bit more, hasn't it? And they're forming a more sort of useful purpose in the sense that as you interact with the website, things happen a lot smoother. So it makes it feel more like a real life experience.
Yeah, that's like more naturally, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
like when you touch something, it just doesn't suddenly, and you go like this gently, it doesn't suddenly zoom off into the distance
Yeah,
and comes
or
back.
just appear.
Way.
Like
Yeah.
menus, I mean, you know, in a simple case, it's things like menus, and you roll over a mega menu rather than it just going like that, which is a bit like
It's a bit of a
startling.
fade in.
It's kind of like it drops in or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Google, when they did the design guide last year, they kind of put a reference in there for motion and how that should work, and it was all about easing and so on, about how it should sort of like, you know, things, and it's really for their sort of their iOS platform thing, but I mean it's like the way something moves rather than just like it goes, you know, smoothly.
I'll tell you what I read, which was really exciting. You
Yeah.
know, I like to keep up with the latest what's happening. When it goes out, they have that sort of like curve, don't know how it works, animation. So when it goes out, it shouldn't slow down because then people are sitting there going, something's going to happen. Oh, and then it goes out and they're all just really disappointed. Something really simple, but something really quite obvious. There you go.
Well, I think the thing is to make it, the idea is that you've got to make it feel more like real life. That's the whole sort of purpose of it, isn't it?
Natural.
And material design, the Google design guide thing, kind of, that was the point of it. And it was like bringing light. Imagine if light was shining on something, which way would it go? And it's not like the thing that we had before where people try to do buttons with shadows and make them just look cool. It's actually, if you interact with something, how would the light react to it? So you can already see it if you use Google on the mobile these days. It already starts, you know, when you tap on something, it very slightly changes colour from the point that you tapped it.
It's clever, isn't it?
That was amazing.
Technology.
I wouldn't know how to write it, but I like the idea that that's being thought about, and it's a lot less kind of it's not form over function. It's kind of like it's bringing those two things together. I think it's making the whole experience feel more, just a bit more tactile and a bit more. It flows better.
So when you're designing something, you know, as a creative director, you might not be programming it or writing the code, but you know, is this something you consider?
Yeah,
very,
definitely.
very importantly, is, you know, I don't know how much in consideration you get it in when you're doing a sketch. How do you put that into a sketch to say, right, I want this to do something really interesting with animation, or do you just do something really simple like write what it needs to do?
I just write it. Yeah, make this do this. No, we do one of two things. Usually, we would either do sort of we get the prototypes done up in like either flat JPEG, and then we just annotate it, and we say make this move when you roll over it, for example, or make this button do this, or you know, make this menu fall down in this way, and then give a reference to the site that does it on. So things like CodePen, or you know, I can't remember the other one that we use all the time, but I go there and I say, oh, that's really nice. I like the way that has that movement. But it shouldn't be ever based on. You shouldn't really take the idea of finding something cool and thinking, how can I use that? It's like you think about, if this was a real thing, like if this was a sheet of paper or if this was a box that was being twisted around or whatever, how would I interact with it, and how would it change? How would the light react to it?
Yeah.
And so you think about that, and then you try and find an animation that would suit it in the best way
Do
possible.
you not ever get to a point where you get overexcited, and then where's your cut-off point when you're putting animations in a UI? Because surely you know what, some people are very keen to put everything they've learned.
Do, yeah.
You know, I've learned today, I've learned how to make this spin round 360 degrees and then stick it in and everything's in there, and bouncing around. But so you've got to be really careful, or that happy balance.
Yeah, it's kind of, you get those times when people just like stick their hand in a bag of shapes and then just lob it at the screen and go, oh, I want all of them.
All of them. So what happens if your customers ask for these things?
Oh,
what do you tell them? You tell them they're wrong.
Yes. I recommend they go to the Specsavers. Most of the time, we're quite fortunate that we work in sort of in an industry where our particular sort of clients usually are quite aesthetic led. So they normally would say, if anything,
Do they put their trust in you?
I think so, or they would tell us if it's too far. You've gone too far, mate.
You've gone too far. You're out. You're sacked.
That fuchsia on turquoise is really not helping my eyes. So yes, quite often they will give us some indication, but yeah, I mean, I think we just know, when something feels bloated and just too, it's like, that's not necessary. Less is.
Yeah, that's interesting. So where do you think next is the next stage for this sort of animation, especially UI animation? Because to me, it's already probably we're at a stage where about as far as it can probably go.
No, I think that there's still a lot more that can happen in animation, and I think that we'll only get better at making it useful rather than just using it for the sake of using it. So there's things like sort of parallax images, so the images themselves rather than the web page. You can move your cursor around and see different layers within a photo, and it kind of it just brings things to life a bit more and makes it feel more real. I think because we're still, with the web, we're still exploring it very much, and it's hard to find a real connection with another person, because at the end of the day, it's someone's idea at one end, and it's someone they wanting to give that idea to another person. And previously, we've only gone through, you can have some pictures and you can have some words, and you can have a bit of animation. And I think the more that we can make it feel like a real experience, as in I'm walking into your shop and I'm picking up the product and I'm seeing it and feeling it and touching it and getting the experience of the whole, the feel of your
Because I could say, like the web is still very much 2D, isn't it, really? Still very much a flat experience, and, this will only be faking the experience anyway, but and adding something to it.
Yeah, I think that people try and think of new ways to do things that haven't been considered before, that's all. I think and animation will probably play a huge part in that, I suspect.
And on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye. I'd like to say thank you very much to Tom for coming in and helping us out. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more of these wonderful shows coming soon.